Faith Forged in Fire, where we dive headfirst into the unique challenges and triumphs that comes with being a firefighter, all while exploring what it means to live out a biblical worldview. Join us as we find hope, perseverance, and faith in the midst of the heat and chaos. Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome back, folks. Episode big 1-1. I'm sorry, are we keeping you awake?
Yes, will you hurry up?
We're going to go over when faith collides with trauma and PTSD.
Hey, I got a question before we even get started.
Oh, no. What happened?
I wrote it in my notes. I think you talked about this last month.
I did.
You know what I'm going to ask? What am I going to ask?
I don't even want to
This
try
is
to guess what you're
dangerous.
going to do to me.
Do we think it's PTSD or do we think it's something else? I'm pretty sure you're the one. Somebody brought this up, and I remember
brought it.
agreeing with them, and I
I
thought
brought
it
it up,
was you.
but I think the official is PTSD.
Yeah, I have, though, I'm hearing more from clinicians. I've heard, in fact, I heard not too long ago from a clinician in a class I was in, and she called it the same thing. She called it PTSI
Did you?
for the exact same reason that you did.
Okay.
So I'm hearing more and more. My understanding, and I'm not terribly learned on this side of things, but my understanding is that is actually becoming more of a common thing for the same reason we talked about last month, is because they're finding that does two things. It helps the mindset when you get
Right.
when you're, what's the word?
Diagnosed
with it.
Right.
But also because of that, because you can recover.
Right. So I did a little awesome note taking.
So, by the way, for those who might be wondering, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, rather than post-traumatic stress injury.
Correct.
Which is PTSI.
So the definition that I came up with is a mental health condition that can develop after you experience or witness a terrifying, life-threatening, or deeply traumatic event, which leaves it pretty wide open.
Yep.
Because for you and I, a traumatic event could be a whole lot more than somebody that's never been in the fire or in the ambulance service, or
Right.
or you know, that hasn't been exposed to it over and over and over again. So they listed some of the causes: combat and war exposure, natural disasters, serious accidents, physical, sexual, or emotional abuse, or violent crimes. So it's pretty much anything that sets you over the edge, to not to try to make light of it, but something that's pretty serious, scary stuff.
So when we first started hearing about this, at least in my mind, and this was many years ago, it was connected to military coming back from Iraq, right? Coming back from Iraq, Afghanistan, that kind of thing, years and years ago.
And it used to be, if I've read this right, in the day, guys came back and they were called shell-shocked.
Yeah, like World War II.
Yes.
Yeah.
Guys were shell-shocked.
Right.
And I think PTSD is that.
Yes.
Other than now.
They didn't know what nobody knew. We've talked about this before. I've had conversations. I remember as a kid having conversations with my grandpa, who was in World War II. He lost an eye in World War II. And now looking back, realizing why I had some of those conversations with him. as a young kid going, Grandpa, why are you telling me, thinking, why are you telling me this? Now, in my mind as a young kid, I wasn't stopping him because I loved war stories.
Right.
But some of them got pretty graphic over time, and it was just weird, but he didn't have any outlet. They didn't. There was no, at that point, it was.
Right. There was no support.
Thanks for your service. Go back to work.
And actually, unfortunately for the military, and it may still be that way. I don't think so. I pray it's not. They got the opposite of what they needed when they came home. A lot of those guys were getting spit at. They were getting booed.
Right.
They were getting things thrown at them. Those kind of things. That's not what you need.
Especially after Vietnam. Yeah.
If you have to say Vietnam was when that was.
Yeah. So one of the things that it listed were symptoms. So like and I'll run through these, and I bet you I can have a personal experience to talk about with every one of them. Intrusive memories, flashbacks, nightmares, vivid thoughts, and avoidance, which means staying away from places, people, objects, and conversations that bring back the topic.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, intrusive thoughts were a part of life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen all of those in you.
Yeah. Flashbacks.
Mm-hmm.
I could be driving down the road, smell grass.
Mm-hmm.
And people have, now they're debating on whether to call them triggers or what they're going to call.
Right.
But
I don't really like that word.
Well, I don't either, but I'm just going to go with the trigger.
Because it's what we call it.
Yeah. So I could be driving down the road and smell fresh grass, and it might not bother me. The next day I could go down a road and smell fresh grass and catch myself wanting to do 100 miles an hour in a 25 mile an hour speed zone to get away from the smell.
Right.
I could jump on a lawnmower and mow without any problem. Sometimes it takes me about 2.5 hours to mow my yard. I could be 2 hours into the mowing without having any problems, listening to some tunes, having a good day. Look down, and there's a big old panel on the zero turn that shows all the things not to do, and one of them is a child getting run over by a lawnmower.
And then you're done.
I'm done.
Yep. Here's one of the things to me that I think is interesting too, is we talk about the difference disorder and injury. When you read that list, there's probably one thing on that list that I haven't experienced. And I don't know that I've experienced avoidance much. I probably have, like, especially when you first come back from a call, it just doesn't last, right? At least for me. And we've talked about that. I thoroughly believe it's God's grace and the way he's wired me, and then through my understanding of Scripture, to be able to, it's hard in the moment, but then you're able to work through it. But read that list again, because I have a point here. Read that list again.
Of the symptoms?
Yes.
Intrusive memories.
Okay, got it.
Flashbacks.
Got it.
Nightmares.
No, not in my memory. That's one thing I have not had.
No.
Keep going.
Vivid thoughts.
Got it.
And avoidance.
And like I said, not like you, like you couldn't go near a certain area, or like you maybe not mow lawn.
Right.
There's been times where for a day or two, I've just maybe had to tell Amy, you're going to have to handle that for now, but it doesn't last long. My point is, that's another reason I like the injury thing, because and I can't control those flashbacks. We've talked about it on this show before. You're driving down the road, and I mean, it's been years since I've been on your department, but I might be driving down the road in your area, don't even really know where I am, and I drive past a house, and all of a sudden, the smells, the sounds, it's there as vivid as can be. And I'm fine. It's not a big deal from the standpoint of, it doesn't derail me. It doesn't mess me up. And before too long, it's gone again, but it's there. So that idea of that injury,
Right.
And I don't even know. I mean, I think that's probably the best. Some of it is, and I don't want to get us off topic here. I just always feel like this is such an interesting topic. I wonder how much some of it is, and this is not a suck it up buttercup idea, but I was talking to somebody about this not long ago, and maybe it was one of you guys, maybe it was even here, but just the idea that when I signed up for this, I didn't know the extent, but I knew there was going to be impact on my mind, because how can you not see what we see and it not impact my brain? So I don't even, like, when that happens, it doesn't, it's just like, well, it is what it is. My whole life, the rest of my life is going to be that way, whatever, in a sense, like, so it doesn't control me by God's grace. I'm so thankful for that, right? But it's still there.
But do you really, I'm just curious, you said, do you really, I'm really curious in how many people sign up for the job really knowing the full effects.
You can't.
Right?
You can't.
Right? Because,
no.
well, even like we were saying.
I don't think you can.
Well, like.
But you have to know that there's some.
Well,
thing,
I think, this is my personal opinion, is that I think, you get a lot of these young kids go, it won't affect me. I'll be fine.
Oh, yeah.
And then all of a sudden you go on some stuff and you're like, oh,
right.
wow. And
they're puking after they see their first broken ankle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, just whatever, right? Like it just, you talk about the PTSD or PTSI or whatever, but you talk about the things that affect them. They come into this thinking, I'm stronger than that, or I can handle this.
Yeah.
No big deal. So I think there's a lot of people that don't think that, it's like this. I think a lot of people, it's always like, it won't happen to me. It happens to other people. It won't happen to me.
Right.
Kind of thing, and I think and you don't really think about it till it does happen to you.
Right.
It's like,
well, it's not a Netflix series.
No.
Yeah.
They glamorize so much stuff. It's different in person. Sure.
Yeah, and I think what people aren't ready for is what they're not ready for. And what I mean is they'll run that big call and be fine and think, oh, I got this. What they're not ready for is that little call that should not bother you, and now it does.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, anyway, keep going. I just wanted to kind of talk through that. I think that's interesting.
So there's some more symptoms. Negative changes in mood. Ever
had that? Yep.
Okay. Emotionally numb.
I feel like that's what
Normal.
we are. Like,
right.
I mean, I again, I feel like sometimes we apologize because if you've listened to the whole thing, we've talked about this stuff, but I feel bad at times this stuff doesn't bother me.
That's what set me off. That's why I hate SISM classes.
Right.
I was doing fine until I had that class.
Yeah.
And at that point, then I realized that this call is not bothering me like it did people that have been on the police force for 30 years.
Oh.
Shame on you.
Okay.
You cold-hearted SOB.
Right.
And that's why I will never make somebody go through a SISM class.
I'm talking though too, like, and I understand that, but how can I go and do CPR on somebody and they don't make it back, and I come home, wash my hands, clean up, sit down and eat dinner with my family?
Well, but that's pretty normal. But is it?
It isn't though. We say that. I think I told this story last month. This happened at the big city department. I wasn't a part of it. I was told about it, but rookie, we're talking rookies last week, runs his first CPR call just before lunch, and they don't get the guy back. They come back, and they're doing the normal thing that we call normal. They wash their hands. They're joking around. They're getting ready to eat. Finally, he can't take it anymore, and he kind of went off. And he said, are we going to act like nothing happened? And they were all kind of went, oh, like, yeah, maybe he's not okay. So to your point, no, it's not normal, but it is for us. And that's something that I often ask myself, why does this not? Why is it so easy for me to go back to doing something else and dismiss that somebody else is spiritually? it convicts me because of my compassion, but I shouldn't be that. I will always, like, I'll take time to pray for that family. And, you know, even if I'm not feeling the weight of it,
Right.
because I know they are, and because of the job, this is normal and it shouldn't be, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Do you I'm curious question. Do you feel that when you, like, you're able to, well, I mean, obviously in your guys' case, the calls, well, not, but when you go to work, like when you go in the morning, do you switch gears mentally for that day? And then when you leave, you switch back into like regular life? Like,
No.
Are you?
I used to. When I worked in automotive, I did. On the way to work, I would switch into automotive mode, and then when I came home, I don't find my brain ever being out of that mode. Because I could go home, throw on the Xbox, be doing a little deer hunting, and the tones could drop with a house fire with a victim trapped.
Right.
So it's, and I think that's probably one of the reasons it kills so many of us, is because we're always on guard.
Yeah.
However you want to call that. You know, we're always ready for something to go off.
I don't feel like, even when I'm not around and I can't respond, here's for me, here's one of the things that sometimes I wonder is kind of PTSD or whatever you want to call it. And I don't always do it, but when I get ready for a trip, I used to always travel with a glass. When I get in the car and drive, at least on a road trip, I always had a glass breaker with me. And I had things like two things that are always in my mind is what happens when I get trapped in a car. Am I going to be able to get out when that car and get my family out when that car's on fire and it's upside down? You know, the stuff I have to go to and get people out of.
Right.
Because I know, being that guy that is normally the one pulling them out, I could not live with myself if I couldn't do that in that moment for my family.
Right.
And then I also couldn't live with myself if I pulled up on an accident driving down the highway and I was not prepared, at least in some way, to help. Like, those are the things where you say it doesn't turn. It's not even that it doesn't turn off. I think ahead of time before I leave on a trip. I just went up to the Upper Peninsula 5 hours, and I thought through. I didn't, and part of it is I'm trying to break myself out of that. But I was like, oh, I need to bring, just in case it's the UP. There's not much up there. There's, you know. Even driving, and this sounds crazy, but driving and you drive past the one fire department in miles, and I start thinking, what do I do when I find a house on fire? Because I'm sure they don't have a lot of help up here. I don't have any gear, you know.
Right.
So it just doesn't. No, it doesn't turn off.
Yep.
Sorry, that derailed us a little bit.
No, we're good.
Well, I mean,
no, they're good questions, Steve.
Yeah,
you keep asking. I'm just saying, your question didn't derail.
Yeah.
No, it's the.
So this is kind of, well, the second one, losing interest in life, which is something you, for some people, got to watch close.
Yeah.
You know, they might be a guy that's big into football and all of a sudden they don't care. You know, diehard baseball fan, you know, diehard Tigers fan. Sorry. You know, and they kind of lose interest, those kind of things.
I've not, other than obviously you get those moments of, I shared, I think, time or two, a couple episodes ago, Christmas time, right? And I'm dealing with this 13-year-old that lost her mom. A few hours, even the next day, things feel pretty meaningless.
Yeah, and
but you don't. I haven't lived there like you have.
Like losing interest in life isn't something I don't say would alarm me if you went to a bad call on Friday and NASCAR was Sunday and you just didn't feel like watching it.
Right.
Now, if you're a diehard NASCAR fan and I find 3 weeks from now you still could care less about NASCAR.
Now we got a problem. Right.
You know, and those are things where if you want to call it mentorship or if you want to call it whatever,
right,
those are things that guys need to key in on
peer
the
support.
team.
We talked
Peer
about
support,
that
that's
in the
big
last
word that I couldn't
episode.
think
Yeah.
of. Yeah.
Or in the last month, we had an episode about that.
The other one is called reactivity. So easy to startle, always on guard, trouble sleeping, angry outbursts. Have you ever been easy to startle after a call? Something like that?
I don't remember being easy to startle.
Always on guard?
I mean, we just talked about that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And then how about the trouble sleeping?
That's just normal for me. Like I say that, calls don't generally keep me up or I'm just a person who, in general, I lay down and my mind starts racing about everything else.
Right.
My job, all that. Yeah.
But you've never stayed up 2-3 nights in a row?
No.
How about angry outburst? I don't ever see you have an angry outburst.
That's my own flesh. That doesn't have anything to do with.
Okay, so
I mean, there probably has been, again, within hours after a call where I've responded is a direct result. But for ongoing, like you said, the weeks after.
Right. So I'll throw out an example. Would you think it would be normal 2 or 3 months after an event to slam on your brakes, drive up on a sidewalk, and attempt to jerk a guy off his off his lawnmower because he was giving his kid a ride?
I would not know, but I completely understand where that's coming from.
So those are some of the things it can get that bad.
Right.
So, and then I had some quick stats, and then we should probably get back on topic because the topic is actually about being a Christian and and this stuff. So, roughly, now this, of course, I just did Google. I didn't spend 18 hours researching this, but they say roughly 30% of all first responders have conditions like PTSD. I believe when they're talking about first responders, they're talking about police, fire, EMS, and dispatchers. Mm-hmm. So we're all the four of us, if you want to call it that, or the teams. They think they can link it to 58% of all law enforcement suicides, 21% of firefighter suicides, 18 EMS, and 2% of dispatchers. But it's also believed that up to 60% of first responder suicides go unrecorded as such. So they don't record it as a job-related suicide is the way I'm understanding it. They're thinking that it was something else to it. Now, the topic, technically, now that I've really sidetracked us with all of that stuff.
No, I think it's been good, though. It helps.
That's been good.
People, for one thing, people who don't live in this world, it helps them to understand it, I think, a little bit better.
So the title, and I thought about this a lot today, was When Faith Collides with Trauma and PTSD.
Yeah.
So you, if I can say it this way, are lucky. You've been a Christian your whole life, brought up in a Christian family, got great Christian values. Of the people in this room, I would lovingly call you the grandpa, the grandpa Christian, right? But people out there need to know that the faith in the PTSD, you're going to say to me, I have a biblical background. I understand why these things happen. Mm-hmm. I have this to stand on. A lot of us didn't.
Right. Exactly.
And there's a lot of people that don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I will say this. There is a reason that I am happy to be involved in the peer support team and why this is becoming such a bigger deal to me because of that. Because not just that people don't, but if you are struggling with this, it doesn't mean that your faith is less either. Now, it may be partly because of not having a relationship with the Lord. But if you're a Christian and I think of a lot of the emails we get for people struggling, but they're trying at least in some way to follow the Lord. And maybe as I read that, I say, well, that's a younger Christian, but that's not, like, that's okay. It's Let me go over a couple things here to help people think through this. This idea of PTSD it's a modern term. You called it shell shock from World War II.
Right.
What about David? If you read the Psalms, wouldn't you read some of those Psalms as written by a guy with PTSD, what we would call PTSD? Job, he lost everything. According to your definition, he would have PTSD. And as you read the way he at some points responded to God, you see it. Would Paul and all the persecution he went through, not to mention a guy who murdered people, right? Think about the disciples as they watched Jesus be crucified. Like, we want to talk about the traumatic things that we see. My point is, this is not new, right? Mm-hmm. This is not new. And if we look through Scripture, David is one who really shows us how that affects a person, and it affects your whole person. You will clearly speak to that, right? It controlled you.
Oh, absolutely.
So what I'm saying is, if you're struggling with it, I guess I'm just wanting to build on your point of, I know that I'm fortunate. I'm thankful that God has given me these abilities through His Word to process it in different ways. And I also would say, and I've said it before, I personally feel a burden as a Christian to take this on. We had Cameron on a while ago, and I want to have Cameron on again because he's graduated. Mm-hmm. He and I talked about this, and he said the same thing. He said, I know that I'm going to walk into some things that I'm not necessarily prepared for. I think this fits in even with the mentor thing. This is not something that young guys are prepared for even. And a mentor should prepare them in some way. Mm-hmm. Right. And I did that with Cameron the best I could. I mean, you don't want to scare him to death, and I don't tell him a bunch of gory stories.
Right.
But he said, the difference is I have the hope of Christ to help me walk through this. Yeah. And he said, if I can do that so somebody else who doesn't have hope doesn't have to, and that's kind of how I look at it, is I look at somebody who doesn't have hope, and I ask, how can they do this job? Right. How? Like, how do you live with yourself? How do you not want to end it all? And then going, because I have hope, I would rather do this so somebody else doesn't have to.
And I think that's the point I'm trying to make, is that there are people out here that don't have the hope, don't have the foundation, and are struggling. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's not a overnight thing.
No.
It was a long time for you and I was doing Bible study once a week, EMDR therapy twice a week, and it was 8 months.
It was a long time after you even came to Christ.
Right.
Before.
So what I realized is through it, the EMDR was helping me, but then I was realizing I was feeling better when I left Bible study than I did EMDR therapy. Mm-hmm. And at first it was like, whatever, I needed help.
Right.
You know?
I don't care what's making me feel better.
And then eventually it got to the point where I really felt like that. And I think that's one of the things, and I know that you hate it when I bring this up, that it just irritates the snot out of me. And I absolutely understand why, because it's not you, it's God working through you. But where would I be had you not been in my life? So it's like, I have a pretty good idea. And had you not stuck it out with me, you know, but that's for other people out there that if you got a bullheaded SOB that you're working with, just beat him up or whatever you got to do, but get their attention, because it may not happen overnight for you. It may take a few years.
Yeah, but for me, it didn't feel like that, because I was more frustrated with you the years before when I saw it, because I didn't even know you before that call, right? We met shortly after that, and I could see a decline, right? I knew, and just because I could see where you were when I met you to where and I saw habits, and it didn't matter what I tried, you wouldn't let me in. And that was so frustrating for me, because I knew at that time, if he would just let me give him some hope.
Right.
So once you were at a place where you let me in, I didn't care how long it took.
It's been a while.
And I also knew, Jason Sawtell and I talk about this a lot, because there's this tension, and we've had this conversation on here between the medical side of things, the clinical side of things, and the spiritual side of things. Because ultimately, if someone gets medical help but not spiritual help, what good is it, right? Now, their life here is better, yes, and we want that. But Jason and I have talked about this so much. Like, say for you, with the EMDR alongside of the spiritual side of things, God was using that to help straighten out your thoughts so you could even sit and hear his word, right? Sometimes you have to have that side of things. And we said it then. If you would have come to me with a broken ankle, I wouldn't have said, well, let's study God's word. I'd have said, you need to go to the hospital,
Right.
But yeah, and I think it's funny when you say to me, I felt better leaving Bible study, because the other story is every time we studied the Bible, you felt more and more convicted about your sin, because
Right.
because it wasn't me. Again, it was God's word, and I didn't even know. We'd go over something, and then you'd be like, well, we got to have a talk.
Yeah.
And then we go over something else. We got to have a talk. And so the fact that you felt better is amazing to me. It's crazy, because of the conviction that was there and the way God was working in your heart.
And that wasn't something that happened overnight.
No.
I just didn't wake up one day and decide, hey, I'm going to be a Christian, and my whole life got better. It did.
No.
My whole life did absolutely get better. But I also think that people need to realize that, if you're going through things like that and you do become a Christian, Steve was lucky and felt that overnight.
Mm-hmm.
It took me a while.
Yeah.
But, everybody is.
And your life still isn't perfect by any means.
No.
Your life isn't. I mean, if some people knew, we talk about it in I think people could feel like your life is this big glorious thing. There's still things that we continuously work through, even as a result of your past life still. But you can deal with them differently. When you say your life's better, it's because you can deal with them differently, whether it's inside the fire service or outside of the fire service.
Well, you talked about, we talked about avoidance. It's one of the things that people do. There was times I wouldn't drive down the road that Marsh Creek was even on, because I didn't want anything to do with it. Now, what was it, a month, 2 months ago or something? I think I texted you. I don't know if I texted the group or just you, but I went, I think I was just at the house.
You brought tears to my eyes with that text, Rich.
You know, and I didn't even realize that was the house of the May 17th call. Now, it's weird because that didn't bother me at all. But tonight I struggle going through,
Right.
you know.
Right, when you start,
to sit here and say, oh, no, I'm over all of that stuff. No. I'm telling you, avoidance was very high on my topics tonight of like, I don't even want to talk about this. I don't, because there's days I can be fine and other days that it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
But we do, and we wanted Rich to lead this, knowing, because maybe it was our first episode this month, and we talked about we talked about God's grace in your life when we were talking about Steve's testimony and how just that change. It doesn't mean life is perfect, and that's why this is a great example, right? God has very drastically changed your life and helped you through this, but it doesn't mean you're just better, like completely better.
Right.
But the difference is now I'm not worried about you going home and going off the rails because we had this conversation tonight.
Right.
It's heavy and it's hard. Part of that, I think, at least like for me, my mind doesn't just go to that. My mind goes to the derailment of your life, right, from that. And for me, when we talk about, that's the heaviest, like all of it put together, because we say always it was never, that day broke the camel's back.
Right.
But we point to that day.
Great.
So yeah, it's just it's so heavy. But I think of a scripture. This whole thing was where trauma and faith collide. Scripture says, if any man be in Christ, he is a new creation. We talked about that even in that episode of being created for good works. And the beauty is that Rich today is a new creation. Yeah. And he's still struggling. But I can say that, and this is part of the reason we started this podcast. Jason and I did many years ago now. It's part of the name, Faith Forged in Fires, embracing the fires that forge your character. That was a fire, and that will never be gone. Steve hit it on the head. It's not, but it's also not something we should shy away from. I know it was hard for Rich to talk about this a long time ago when he first told his story, and it's hard still. But it's a fire that God put in his life that has forged his character. And now, by God's grace, he can help others.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where, when we talk about faith and trauma colliding, again, God has put this in our lives for a reason. God has called us to be firefighters for a reason. I didn't grow up wanting this. I never did. It never even crossed my mind. I was not that kid that grew up even thinking about what firefighters did. I don't know. It just was not a thing.
We just sucked you in with the lights and the woo-woo.
Ministry was the number one reason.
Right.
And then I fell in love with the rest of it.
Yep.
So, and I would say, for me, all the trauma, everything I've experienced and will experience is worth it because you're sitting here today. And I know there's other ways that it's worth it, but if that's the only thing, it'll be eternally worth it.
Steve,
it's amazing.
We got to land this plane.
Yeah, this was a long one.
I know this was a good. I mean, hey, when the Spirit's working and when the podcast, and a lot of times people see us and we're having fun, we're laughing and giggling and making each other laugh, hopefully making you laugh. But sometimes we have to get serious, and I think these subjects are important. And the flip side of the fire service, but the flip side of life, and like you talked about earlier on, Josh, is you talk about just because we're all believers as we sit here. It doesn't mean everything's perfect. And, we have to deal with the same types of problems in life. Sometimes, in some respects, spiritually, sometimes it can even be worse because, we are Christians and we have to deal with some things that some other people don't have to deal with, which is a bummer because of our faith. But, these are important topics to really speak about and get out and show that vulnerability that we have as brothers in the Lord, as fellow fire guys, and that we're human. And we go through things too, and we have each other. And the thing is, Rich, God has given you some great people in your life, to help you get through it, and it was one of the reasons he gave you Josh was because of what you were going to go through, and so.
Well, and to be fair, let's not sell you short, Steve. I mean, I think God brought you into Rich's life at just the right time as well, just to be that added encouragement that he needed along the way. I mean, most people don't even know how we all met, and part of it is through your job. You ended up in Rich's fire station, but he formed a friendship, and you guys have been able to encourage each other. Yeah. And I mean,
and what's cool too is it's all of our backgrounds. All of our backgrounds have significance, and what's cool about me and Rich is we have some similarities of the way we grew up. Right. Rich and your background are completely different backgrounds. Mm-hmm. But me and Rich have very similar backgrounds, so it's kind of a cool thing that we share together as two guys, and that years ago grew up differently than some of the world, and at least the Christian side of the world, and then now we're brothers in the Lord, and we can share some things, and we understand things that that you may not understand, right? Because again, you didn't grow up that way and stuff. So it's just really cool. All of our backgrounds are very special and unique in their own way, and that's what God uses those things. Because again, who God can use me with, or can't use you with, and then vice versa.
Exactly.
It's like and it happens, and so we all have something that's very unique. So I think these are just great shows to really let them go and let people see the raw emotion and the other side of things and the vulnerability, and that God's using that to, someone will watch this and write us and go, hey guys, thank you. I'm glad you guys did that. I'm glad to see that because I'm not the only one, and it's like, Rich, thank you for sharing because, you have a humongous heart, my man. And I love the fact that you are raw and you share the things you do. And I think God is using that in big ways with our viewers more than you ever will realize. You'll find out when you get to heaven someday. You find out all that. So thank you again. But we should let you go here. I know it's getting kind of late, but if you have any
bedtime.
Yeah, I know it is. And I'm going to turn into a pumpkin soon.
Yeah, it's probably like 8 o'clock in the morning for somebody right now. They're going, what in the world?
Well, it is almost mailbox season.
Well, there's, when you're watching on Friday morning, your favorite podcast in Faith, Forge, and Fire, there's only one other thing that goes along with it is a real fresh cup of Red Flannel Coffee Company. Red Flannel Coffee Company coffee with your with this podcast. It's like, it's just like having a nice donut.
They need that
there.
extra caffeine.
They just need that extra caffeine.
It.
So when you're watching this, make sure you pour yourself a nice cup of Red Flannel coffee. And how do you get Red Flannel coffee? That's a great question you ask. What you do is you go over to redflannelcoffeeco.com and punch in PJ30, get 30% off your first order. And
all your orders.
I thought it was your first order.
It's every order. Come on, Steve.
Is it every one? I thought it was the first one.
It's every order.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
The new owner's going to fix that. He's not having that. You guys better get all you can right now before the new owner starts taking away all these discounts.
That's funny. I love that. Also, make sure that you have any questions, comments, concerns, show ideas. Just talk to us. Please write into us. Let us know what you're feeling and be real and honest with us as we're being real and honest with you on the show. Please, no bad language. I do ask that, but
Steve can't handle it.
Rascals.
My sensitive side will definitely will melt down. Make sure ffifpodcast@gmail.com and drop us a line. And also too, YouTube, where else do we go? Spotify, anywhere that you like watching our podcast, make sure you like it and subscribe and stuff. Let's get this podcast out there and let people
share it.
Share it with people. Make sure you share it, let people hear it, because I know God is using this in big ways, and so and we just love being here to do this, and God using us to help you guys out. So, well, thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you next month. So you guys have a great one. Take care.
See you next month.